I want to show you how to turn yourself from a wage earner, trading your time for money, into a capitalist. I moved to Cairns, Australia after a career on Wall Street with no skills, no way of making money. I had to figure out, how am I going to make steady, regular income? You just buy it. You just buy your income. You first have to identify yourself as an asset. I've employed a lot of lawyers, a lot of accountants. There's no school that teaches you this stuff. And that's what I want to teach with this podcast. Welcome to the Passive Property Investor Podcast, where I teach you how to stop trading your time for money with property investment. I'm Jerry Parker, your property investment consultant. Let's dive in. Hey, how are you? My name is Jerry Parker, and you are at the Passive Property Investor Podcast. Welcome. What I want to do here is I want to teach you and show you how to turn yourself from a wage earner, trading your time for money, into a capitalist, someone who does not work and they don't pay taxes, which is a beautiful spot to be in. And I've got a little bit of a journey myself that kind of brought me along to become a capitalist. And my journey started, now I'm the son of a property investor and developer, which was my father. And I went to great schools. I have no rags to riches story, anything like that. And I went to university. I became a backpacker, traveled around the world, met this beautiful girl in Australia, came back home, did not want to work for my father. And so I went to Wall Street in New York City. And I had a career working up there. And subsequently, my beautiful Australian girlfriend came and lived with me for a little while. And then she left and had to move back to Australia, and I couldn't live without her. So I moved to Cairns, Australia in 1989 after a career on Wall Street with no skills, no trade, no way of making money, and struggling. I worked trying to sell commercial real estate. And then I finally made the most money in the night markets selling little colorful foam toys to Japanese girls. And that was made me, I was making $600 a day doing that, and where with my coat and tie as a commercial real estate agent making nothing. We wanted to build this big house. We found a block of land with a view of the ocean, and I had to get that done for us. And so I had to figure out, how am I going to make steady, regular income? And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the skills or the ability to generate it in wages. So I took the Wall Street method and said, you just buy it. You just buy your income. This is what the Wall Streeters do. And so I started looking to that. I read books like The E-Myth and other books, a little bit of Robert Kiyosaki, and started following what they were doing, is you build assets and generate income off of those. And so I started building houses and building and selling houses. And somehow I got a builder's license. I actually bought that from someone else and used that and started building a lot of houses, and then keeping the houses, and then subsequently built my own house, built warehouses, built apartments, and it just kept going. And then I started building a chain of coffee shops, and I copied Starbucks. And it's very similar to a business, is similar to a property, in that it's a asset that generates income. And so I was building, stepping up with more income, more assets, more income, and more assets. And eventually you get enough assets that generate enough income that your wages don't even matter anymore. You make more, much more than your wages. So it becomes, why work? You know, your assets take over your wages. And to do that, you first have to identify yourself as an asset. You are your principal asset, and you develop your own personal knowledge to where you increase the value of you as an asset so you can earn more income, and then you use your excess income to buy assets, and then over time, they replace your income as well. And that's been my journey in my life in Australia. I was struggling at first, and then I figured out how to do it. And that's what I'm wanting to do in this podcast, is help people, young people or old people, people who are smart, who make good income, and they're working, trading their time for money, and they looking down to the vanguard of the next 20 or 30 years and like, how are they going to get off this treadmill? And the way to do it is to look at yourself as an asset, as a capitalist does, and build yourself more assets. And that's what I want to teach with this podcast. And I will bring in other people to talk about this, and I will give more real life examples. I'll try to start with a bit of talking about the basics about equity and cash flow, and a little bit about Australian tax and how to transfer your yourself into a better asset and build more assets as well. So as part of my journey, coming from nothing in Australia and then buying houses and building houses, I became a licensed builder. And the way I did that was because I hired out a builder's license, and I started building houses using another person's license. And then that gave me enough qualification points to be able to get my own license. And I had to have all the invoices and all the engineering reports from that, and that I qualified as a builder that, rather than going through the natural tradesperson route, which gave me a great insight of the value of housing, and that construction is a service. And as an investor, that's what you're doing. You're employing a builder for the service of building your house. You know, I made a lot of mistakes along the way as well. I remember this once. I was traveling with my family. This is a crazy story. And we were on the Marrakesh Express, which is a train line in Europe that goes up from Africa to Spain. And during that, I was building a Bow Repairs tire center, and it was an old site where there was a fuel station and had contaminated soil. But the fuel company had cleaned up all the soil. So I had this big problem where they couldn't find any of the petroleum in the ground, so I couldn't get the approval. And I'm on the train talking to my solicitor on the Marrakesh Express at midnight, trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this soil issue on the construction of the Bow Repairs. And short story, it cost me probably 6 months and $150,000 in soil testing. And then I sent the soil tester, who couldn't come in time, I sent them 35 mud crabs from Cairns to make sure he would come up in time to get this done. This is, kind of like how desperate I was. But, it's just a funny story along the way that really teaches you, how to get into trouble and then how to get back out of trouble. And, I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. So I've got a lot of stories like that. And I've employed a lot of lawyers. I've employed a lot of accountants. And I've employed the town planners, valuers, real estate agents, bankers, mortgage brokers along the way. And, there's no school that teaches you this stuff. And this is the way that you learn it, through experience. So if there's any problem that you have, I know how to get out of it. I've been there. I've had the experience of going through it, and I will have the answers of what to do, rather than, people. A lot of people I talk to now, this is what the fear they have inside of them. All these intricate details, but everything has a solution, and you just need to have the right direction to get out of it. I learned a lot as well when I was building a small chain of coffee shops. I bought a coffee roaster from America. This is back in 1995, and built 6 coffee shops in a roasting operation around that, and ended up selling them. And it was a little bit frustrating to me because there were only 12 coffee clubs at the time, and I had 6 Coast Roast coffees at the time, and I sold them. And I was wondering, why did you sell that? This was the middle of the coffee boom. I'm like, what have you done? And then it forced me, or pushed me, to go to Melbourne Business School to get an MBA to figure out why I was so stupid as to sell my chain of coffee shops right before the coffee boom. And the MBA, it gives you a lot of structure, but it doesn't teach you as much as the experiential knowledge that you get from doing, from getting stuff done. Sometimes I tell that story to property investors and say, look, you just have to do and you will learn. Do your first one and you will then have much more confidence for your second one. And the mistakes are not that big. And property is so safe that if you make a big mistake and you can't afford it, just rent it out. You can get the income. Or if that's a problem, well, just sell it. And then you're out. It's never, it's nothing that's ever going to send you some fatal mistake that's going to wipe you out. I've learned that building, probably 35 houses, doing land subdivisions and building warehouses. And I've never made a mistake in property. I have made small mistakes investing with other people and giving my money to big property funds, and it went under. I've suffered from that, but I've never made a mistake in property because you either rent it or sell it or just keep it and it'll just keep going up in value. So all this I've done over 25 years in Australia has led me to the business I have now. I have a business, Capital Growth Property. It's a property advisory business. And all I do is help investors build their investment property portfolios. And in this, which has driven me to this podcast, really, with the clients that I've had, what I'm doing for them is I'm taking them from time trading wage earner to capitalist. And that's what I'm doing with my customers. And that's what I want to talk about in the next episodes of this podcast. And it's the driving reason why I'm doing it, to give this people this transformative feeling in their life where they're in control. They're a capitalist. They're not a wage earner getting told what to do by their boss or whoever all the time. That we're all individuals. We're all capitalists. And you can build a future for yourself that you drive and you build your assets towards this, some people call it financial freedom, or it's like where you own your time and you're doing what you want to do. It doesn't make you like super rich, but you're owning your time and you're doing exactly what you want to do. And I think that's what a lot of people want, but they want that pathway to get there. They want to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Why are they going to work? Why are they in the traffic? Why are they suffering through the high taxation, and they have their lazy equity in their house and it's sitting there and it's not helping them? Why is this situation? Because they don't have that pathway. They don't see where they're going to where they can control their assets, control their life, and stop trading their time for money. And that's what I want to do in the podcast. So stick around. I'm going to keep bringing more episodes and hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in to The Passive Property Investor. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to show your support is to give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube so you don't miss a single episode. We're on all social media platforms, so feel free to connect with me there. And if you're having specific problems making your first investment or building your portfolio, maybe you don't know which location to invest in, how much you should invest, you're worried about who to trust, reach out for me down below. I will have the answers for you. Don't hesitate. See you on the next episode.